Okay, welcome everybody to Dump and Chase Podcast. This is the first episode. We're shorthanded, 2 guys already, but that's okay. Got to push through. To start off, so to my right, Nolan will be one of my co-hosts. If you'd like to introduce yourself, how's it going, bud?
Yeah, doing good here, bud. Excited to get this thing started.
Sure. All right, so we're short 2 guys. Dylan Forsyth, he's our Ducks guy. And then Liam O'Connor, he's a Flames guy, but one's out sick and one's out busy. We're supposedly doing college homework. So, all right, we'll get right into this. First off, we just want to kind of address Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew. Obviously, me and Chard aren't the biggest Flames fans, but we kind of grew up in the area of Calgary, and Gaudreau, Johnny especially, had an impact on us. Inspiration to a lot of kids and people around not just Calgary, but in the Philly area as well, where he grew up. So I believe me and Chard have both been to the memorial at the Saddle Dome. I know I have. I brought Gatorade, flowers, and all that kind of stuff. Definitely shed a tear or two. Just a tragic time, and we just kind of wanted to speak on it a little bit before we started our podcast. Chart, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, I went down to the memorial shortly after a week that the tragedy occurred. Dropped off some Gatorade, and I dropped off his rookie hockey card, some flowers, red and yellow. Like, it's just unbelievable that something like that happens. And such a great guy. I have a couple of my favorite memories of him are I saw him score a hat trick live. Like, that's just on ice stuff. I mean, off ice stuff, I've seen all the stuff he's done for people, but it's just hard to speak on because it's sketchy emotional.
Yeah. I met him at WinSport probably 7 years ago now. It's hard to believe that we're going into this next season and he's not going to be a part of it, and Matthew's not going to be around either. But yeah, we just kind of, our thoughts and prayers are with the Gaudreaus, especially the father and mother. So it's kind of hard to move past that. But as we get into the podcast here, just want to say a quick thanks for everyone kind of tuning in. This is definitely going to be a work in progress for the boys here. I have experience doing podcasts and stuff, but Chard, he's been wanting to get into it, but he doesn't really have experience. And the other 2 boys, they don't have as best setups as we do, so we'll see how that all turns out, but we're definitely looking forward to it. So bear with us. We appreciate you guys tuning in. All right, to begin, the NHL preseason. This has been a crucial debate over the last couple weeks, and rightfully so. We've seen a lot of injuries with Drew Doughty and Patrick Laine, and just the bigger names getting hurt. Is it too long, or should the regular season be extended? Personally, I think the preseason should be shorter, and the regular season should stay the same. There's no reason to add 2 more games, make it 84. That seems ridiculous. The season's long enough, and then the preseason feels like it drags on for weeks. I feel like we should already be starting regular season hockey, other than the Sabres and the Devils and whatever Prague games were there. But there gets to a point where it's just, this isn't meaningful hockey. It's pointless. The 4 games, 3 games, that's fine, but up to 7, and then you have regular season games with preseason games going on. It just doesn't really make sense. Preseason is meant to be before the season. That's why it's called the preseason. Chard, what are your thoughts on the whole preseason debacle?
I think they should just shorten the preseason. I think they should drop it down to probably between 3 and 5 games. For the full-time NHLers, it's more to just get their legs going and get up to real-time speed. But I think that a 3 to 5 game tryout for, I don't know, rookies or unproven players that played in the minors, that should be more than enough. And it just prevents a lot of injuries. Like, for example, Panarin going down, Drew Doughty going down, that Cedric Poirier hit on Patrick Laine. Like that stuff is preventable. Like it's not needed. And I'm not saying that it's needed in like regular season or whatever. Like those are just freak accidents, but it's in a meaningless game that they didn't even need to be playing in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for the rookies and like all those guys trying to make an impact. Obviously, with 7 games, you get more of a look and you get more opportunities, but it's just hard to balance. I really don't know if there is like a in between where everyone's happy. Like that's probably why it hasn't been changed either. It's just like really hard to find a middle ground for everyone, especially with players and everything else. Even goalies too. I mean, it takes a bit for goalies to get going, and I know a lot of the regular starters don't play maybe 1 or 2 games, but there's a lot to take in. I definitely think preseason should be cut down, or they figure out a way to just manage it all, I guess. But it's definitely getting to a point where it's like, okay, is it done yet? Like we're almost starting the season, but preseason games run till tomorrow. Like I don't like the Lightning, and I don't even know who they play tomorrow, but
The
like why
Predators.
the Preds and Lightning? Like meanwhile, teams have been off for 4 days by now, and rosters are due tomorrow, but yet you're playing a preseason game. Like I don't know. But into that, Jeremey Swayman, he was another big thing during the summer. Uh, didn't have a contract, was pushing to almost sit this year, it seemed like, but they got it done. 8 years times 8.25 mil AAV. I think he got like 3,000 more bucks than what he originally denied or something, but just that little extra money, I guess. I never thought that the Bruins and them and Swayman wouldn't agree, but the way everything went down and how it was handled was kind of ugly and definitely turned some heads. I thought Swayman was pretty upset. Even last year, he seemed upset at arbitration when his last contract was up. So I didn't think Swayman would go, but it definitely would have been exciting. But also bad for the Bruins. You trade away Allmark, and then you don't even have Swayman locked up. So, but they got it done. Just means the Bruins will never be bad. Like it's the Bruins just keep finding a way, and unless Swayman's not himself without Allmark there, I think it's going to be a pretty good deal. Pretty high on the AAV, but I mean, he definitely could be worth it. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I think Swayman got himself quite the bag there. 8 by 8.25 is the official deal, and I think he's worth it. I thought he was worth 8.5 north, even north of that. Just watch, like as a Leafs fan, watching him in the playoffs, just unreal. Like he single-handedly stole that series against us last year. Um, I didn't really watch much Bruins hockey after that, for obvious reasons, but um, yeah, I think he's totally worth it. But yeah, that could have ended really badly if they traded Allmark and then they piss off Swayman by Sweeney saying that at the press conference.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great deal. I mean, Swayman just continues to Swayman. It's it's a good deal.
Yeah, unless he turns into Mike Smith, I think they got a good deal there. I don't know what their backup situation looks like. You would know better than I
Jonas
do.
Jonas Corposalo.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, never mind.
Corpsala
Busy
will be
guy.
backing up Swayman this year. Brandon Bussey got put on waivers today. That was the hinting sign at Swayman being signed today. But
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, because that Corpusolo went the other way for Ottawa. Yeah, okay.
just a bad trade for the
That'll be
Bruins. That's horrible.
yeah. I get like the want to mix things up and whatever, but like not keeping Allmark and Swayman like the best tandem probably in the NHL together, and then shipping them out to Ottawa and getting Corpusalo back of all goalies seemed like a really odd trade. And I don't know how Allmark's gonna hang in Ottawa. I pray that he's good because he's on my fantasy team, but like
It's me and Swayman.
that decor doesn't look great, and Ottawa's never really handled themselves well. So we'll see how that goes. But in other news, Utah finally named, or I guess former Arizona, finally named a captain, Clayton Keller. I don't know who else it would have been if it wasn't him, really. But yeah, that news came out not yesterday, but the day before, I believe. Elliot Freeman kind of teased at it a little bit on 32 Thoughts, and then like an hour later, Utah announced it. So good for him. Love Clayton Keller. I think he's a great kid, great player. Kraken are the only team without a captain now. I don't know who you give it to there. Chard, your thoughts on both of those?
I really like Clayton Keller being named captain there. You don't really see anyone else being given the C there. Believe he's the longest tenured right now. Him and Lawson Krause are around either the same year or within a year. But I think that's the guy you go to there. He's the face of the team right now. They've just moved to a new city. I think it's a no-brainer. He's a great player. He'll give you north of 75 points every year, and that's like it's all you can ask for from an elite player. I think he'll be there for a while. And then over to Seattle. They're the only team left. I think their captain could go a couple ways here. Thought of two, and to me it makes sense. I'm going with Yanni Gourde. He's a solid two-way guy. He's won a Stanley Cup. Just that Stanley Cup pedigree, that winning pedigree. I think that's a great thing to have. He's got that grit. He'll fight. He stands up for his teammates. Then the other one I'm gonna go with is Adam Larson. Kind of the same thing, other than he doesn't have a Stanley Cup. He's great defensively. He sticks up for his boys. He's physical. I'm just a big fan of the bigger physical captains. But I think they're both veterans. Like that's kind of where I see it going for the captaincy in Seattle.
You don't think they would go with Matty Beniers?
Not yet. I think he's too young. He just came off of a down year, and he's shown signs of frustration just watching him on the bench and everything. Like, I don't know. I think a veteran presence in Seattle, like a Yanni Gourde or an Adam Larson, who have been there since the franchise started.
That's true. I think you just give it to the goalies. Go back to that old school way. Just give it to a goalie.
Luongo.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into anything else, I gotta do a little ad read here. All right. We'll see how this goes. We got practice in college, so. All right. I'll put this in the middle so I don't have to look over. Okay. The weather's cooler. It is officially October. There is truly no better time to be a sports fan. Whether you're deep into the MLB postseason or excited for the NHL season, use Seat Geek for the best available tickets on the market. Whether you are looking for last-minute tickets or trying to lock down a future event, download the app and sign up with SeatGeek for the best deals and use code dumpnchasepod, all caps, for $20 off your next order. That's dumpnchasepod, not and, it's N, for $20 off. All right. I think our teacher would be proud of that. Wrote that myself. That's not even from SeatGeek, so. You better go get that $20
Unreal.
off. All right, we're gonna move into the NHL Amazon series. NHL, or not even NHL, it's called Faceoff, in the
NHL
NHL right
Faceoff.
now. By Amazon. I think it's a great series so far. Charged watched more than I have. I think I'm on like the second episode right now. But yeah, I've been wanting something like this forever. I love like the behind the scenes stuff when they do the mic'd up and the winter classics and they show in the locker room, and like it's what's needed for hockey. The NFL had the quarterback series, and I think it's just the NHL trying to keep up, to be honest. Like the NHL's marketing is just it's not pretty, to say the least. It's definitely something, but I like the initiative here to push into the better market and kind of get, like the bigger names out there, like the McDavids and, those kinds of guys. And McDavid showing the passion and that pedigree in the locker room that you never really see. Like a lot of people don't think he has much personality, but when you go behind closed doors, you see what it's really about. Chard, your thoughts on the series so far?
I really like it. I really enjoy it. Especially that first episode. William Nylander, David Pastrnak. No bias here, I swear. But just watching players' everyday lives, like it's super cool to watch. And Amazon did a series back in the bubble, the second time bubble, where it was the Canadian division and it was Toronto versus Montreal. And it was a Maple Leaf series called All or Nothing. I love the series. I love watching it. Yes, they did blow a 3-1 series lead that year, but it was a really enjoyable series to watch. And I was waiting. I was assuming they were going to do that pretty much every year or just go to a different team. But I really like the series. Like just Nylander, like Nylander on the bench. That's got to be the best clip. That or the McDavid screaming. Like those clips are just so funny. They're so good. It just shows how like passionate those guys are. Like that's what they're here to do. And the fact that Nylander's not an assistant captain is criminal. Just the swagger he rolls around in Toronto with. But yeah, I just finished episode 4 with the Quinn Hughes, Jacob Trouba, and Gabriel Landeskog. Really cool to see Landeskog in the series, considering he hasn't played a game in 2 years since the Avalanche won a Stanley Cup. It's really cool seeing what he is doing in his off time and how, like, just hearing his thoughts on his own recovery and that he's extremely, not to spoil, but like he's just, it's obvious, but he's devastated that like he can't be out there with the boys, and it's just harder. But I can't elaborate more because some people still haven't watched. So
Yeah. I'd like to mention this, like Connor's wife Lauren, like revealed on the Amazon face. I haven't even gotten to this episode, but apparently in the doc series, Connor is afraid of ketchup, of all things. Like apparently their personal chef has to sneak bottles of ketchup into their house. Like he's legit terrified of ketchup. Like of all things. Like I don't, like what possesses a person to be afraid of ketchup? I don't, like it's not gonna kill you. Like
yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. I don't understand. I got to figure out what that is because there's got to be a funny backstory to it. But
yeah, I don't think he's allergic. Like that's something different. But like, yeah, like his wife Lauren said he's afraid of ketchup. So we'll look into that for you and maybe come back to you next pod. But yeah, I just found that pretty funny. Like he can't even look at him. Like it's something. All right. What y'all been waiting for? I mean, if you even clicked on this video for it or not, I don't know. But season predictions. So the way this is going to work, Chart and I are going to kind of break down our standings list, all 4 divisions, East and West, and then kind of give a playoff picture sort of thing, like who makes it, who doesn't. And then we'll discuss some bubble teams that are kind of in between there. For example, like the Flyers. They're always kind of in the middle there. Not to use the Flyers as an example, but yeah, so let's just hop right into it. Let's start with the Metro. Chart, if you want to go ahead first.
All right, so starting off in the Metro, I have my standings board behind the camera here. So I have the New York Rangers coming in first again. I think it's sort of a given. They didn't lose too many guys. Igor Shesterkin is on a contract year coming up, and he wants to set the new table for the UFA market for goalies. I think he's going to do that. I think he's getting north of 11. Carey Price got 10.5. He wants to be the new highest paid guy. He deserves it. So I got them coming in at 1. Then at number 2, I have the New Jersey Devils. I just really like the makeup of their roster. The new additions of Markstrom, and then I guess not newly acquired, but at the deadline last year, Jake Allen. I think that's a really steady, that'll be very steady. 2 veteran goaltenders. Jake Allen I think he's a top backup goalie in the league. And I think he showed it on the weekend, picking up only letting in 1 goal on 18 shots against the Sabres this weekend. And then Markstrom obviously can be a Vezina caliber goalie. He showed it multiple occasions. Last year, kind of a shitty Flames team. He played great, played unreal. He stole some games, a lot of games for him last year actually, which I think caused them to not be a bottom, 5 to 8 team in the league.
Bottom feeder, yeah.
And then coming in at number 3, I got the Carolina Hurricanes. Can't go wrong with Hurricanes. They will always be top 3 in the Metro forever. They just signed Jarvis to that extension. They signed Marty Necas, which we all expected him to be traded at the start of the offseason. They got that deal done. They got some really good pieces to fill in the back end after all the losses they had. I'm trying to pull up their lines here.
Those lines might not be accurate for preseason,
but just bodies they brought in, like the likes of Gostisbehere and Sean Walker, just to fill in that decor. Like, that's great.
That's a sick decor.
And then with losing like Gensel, I can't remember a few other guys, but they brought in Jack Roslovic, which is obviously not a Jake Gensel, but I still really like the look of their team. And in net, they always have a question mark at Freddie Anderson. Me as a Leafs fan, no, it's a question mark. He's either going to get hurt, and if he's not going to get hurt, he's going to play unbelievable in the regular season and games 1 through 6. If you get to a game 7 with Freddie Anderson in net, not good. But then they got Peter Kochetkov backing up. I think he will take over as the starter at some point, either that being Freddie gets hurt or he gets on a bad stretch. But next at 4th, I have 4th, and I have taking the second wildcard spot is the Washington Capitals. I like what they did this year. They're obviously going for they are obviously going for Ovi's goal record without a doubt. But they brought in Pierre-Luc Dubois, getting rid of Darcy Kemper. They brought in Mangiapane from Calgary. They brought in Duhaime from Colorado and Taylor Radish from Chicago. Then they really filled out that decor. I really like what they did in going out and getting Chychrun for Nick Jensen, which is absolutely wild work by the Capitals GM. Then they they signed Matt Waugh, which I think was a great signing. And then they went out and got Logan Thompson, right-handed goalie, him and Lindgren right-handed. I like that tandem. I think they're great 1A and 1B options. No one will be the starter. They're going to split throughout the year. That's why I have them making the playoffs. And then I'm not going to go too in-depth about the ones I don't have making playoffs, but I have the New York Islanders in 5th, missing out on the playoffs. I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a dogfight for that spot. Yeah, their team didn't really change. Their one addition was Anthony Duclair, and that's not a maker. It's not throwing shade at Duclair, but that's not roster shaking move. Then at the 6th spot, I have the Pittsburgh Penguins. Didn't really gain too many players, other than I think they gained Beauvillier, and that's it. They got Kevin Hayes from St. Louis, but I don't think him or Beauvillier would change them into a playoff team. Then at the 7th spot, I have the Philadelphia Flyers. This could obviously change because last year I had them finishing last in the Metro, which was crazy because you look at their roster, they definitely should be last. But they have Tortorella, great coach. He always has the boys super, like their cardio is great, like they're super in shape to start the year. That's why they always start out hot, because he bag skates them in the training camp.
Day one.
And also like that they brought in Michkov. This is the one question mark I have for the team is their goaltending. Samuel Ersson and Ivan Fedotov. Fedotov did not look good last year when he came over from the KHL. Still earned himself a contract of north of $3 million still. And Samuel Ersson played great for majority of the year. And then that stretch that caused them to miss the playoffs, not one save, which was kind of alarming to me. But other than that, I think this team can surprise some people. They did last year. Wouldn't be shocked if they do it again. And then coming in at last in the Metro, unfortunately, I have to put the Columbus Blue Jackets, just because everyone's dealing with the tragedy of losing their star player. You don't grow people like Johnny on trees. And it's just really unfortunate what happened. And hate having to put them last, but they lost their face of the franchise. And a lot of those players are going to be low morale due to that. And I just think it's not going to be a great year. But I do like what the league did, though. They aren't making them meet the cap floor for this season. They can do whatever they want and take however long they need. Really like that move. It shows class from the league, which doesn't happen very often. But that concludes my Metro standings predictions.
All right. So first off, I just want to say for Fedotov, I'm almost like 99% sure the reason he got 3.25 or whatever it was is because that was one of the reasons why they could get him over here. They guaranteed him money to keep him in North America, because I don't think he's worth barely league minimum after the performance he put up last year. But I guess there's benefit of the doubt. It's a clean slate. We'll see what happens, but that will definitely be the downfall of the Flyers.
He's had a full camp with the Flyers goaltending coaches.
He's
got to have some faith.
He's still ugly, man. All right, so I almost have identical to chart here. New York Rangers, obviously, Shesterkin, just the big dude that he is, just outright carries that team. But even their forward group just is unreal, like Trocheck, and Panarin's out right now. We'll see how that goes. I don't know what his availability is right now. But he was another guy that got dropped in preseason. And next, the New Jersey Devils. I was skeptical of them at first, but after seeing their first two regular season games and how sturdy Markstrom looked, I think they can come second in the division. Yes, it was against the Buffalo Sabres, but he looked solid, and so did the rest of the team. I mean, if they can continue that throughout the season, maybe go 82-0, I think they'll be really strong. Next, I have Carolina in that third spot. Like Chart said, they're just never below that third spot. Like, they're always a great regular season team. Playoffs is a little bit different. I don't know what the difference is for them, but they just can't figure it out in the playoffs. It'd be cool to see them figure it out in the playoffs and actually stir up the playoffs a little bit, but as of right,
they don't run into Igor.
Yeah, it's just they hit a wall eventually in the post, and it's just they're an amazing regular season team. It's just they can't figure it out. Next chart kind of changed my mind on this one a little bit, for the sake of actually, I was gonna say Washington, but for the sake of hope and prosperity and Fedotov actually holding out here.
Here we go.
Starting off early. I really think the Flyers can make a playoff spot. Making the playoffs is one thing. Being competitive and actually making it past the first round or being a cup contender is a completely different thing. But for the sake of argument, let's say Michkov is unreal and Torts is on the boys all year and they don't have the 10-game losing streak that they do every year. I think they can easily make the playoffs, let alone fight in the first round better than, for example, the Capitals did last year. Like, that was awful to watch. And I think I'd rather watch the Flyers put up a little bit of a fight than the Capitals get absolutely smoked out of their playoff hopes. So, yeah, for the sake of argument, Michkov and the boys rally together and they make the playoffs. Next, yeah, I think I have Washington in that next spot. They're pushing for Ovi's goal record, and like, there's a very good chance that he could get it this year, if he comes out flying. But if he has that rough start like he did last year, he'll probably get to close to 30. But even that's a small ask for him the following year. That's like 15 goals after that. So until Ovi reaches the pinnacle of leading goal scorer, the Washington Capitals will not ever rip this apart until that happens. A lot of people seem to think that the Capitals did rebuild this year and kind of ripped apart, and I disagree to some extent. I think they still have some young guys, but there's still a lot of vets on the team, and it's obviously a more competitive, heavy team for that reason, Ovechkin being the main focal point. So I think that'll be their main concern. They'll try and be competitive, probably dogfight for that wild card spot. Like Chart said, it's always a dogfight in the Metro. Comes down to the last game of the season, like every year. So next, I have the Islanders. Sorry, Sorokin. I think, going to be back. He's making progress, I think, with his injury. But if he's not as solid as he was, I think it was last year, right? He had that really good season, or was it a year before?
He had a down season last season, and then he had a great season 2 ago.
Yeah, so I mean, if it could go either way, and I think he could be the difference maker if the why do I keep saying Rangers? If the Islanders make or break the playoffs. So I don't see him having that great of a year. Great as in Sorokin level, to the point where he isn't great, but I feel like he's always good in some regard. So we'll see how that goes. And then I have Pittsburgh and Columbus to round it out. Pittsburgh, this isn't a bias. I've come around to Pittsburgh. The rivalry's barely there anymore. Like, all the guys are gone. Like, there's Michkov, and those guys will probably stir it back up, but like, I barely feel a rivalry there anymore. But again, Pittsburgh's just in that weird standstill where they're like in between a rebuild and just kind of fighting for something, I guess. Like, Crosby wants to be competitive, but they're struggling to be competitive. So, and then, yeah, Columbus, in all respects to Gaudreau, I don't think it would have made much of a difference. Like, Columbus is always that bottom league team, but never dead last. It's always like they're that bottom 5 team. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see them band together for Gaudreau and kind of push for even that second wild card spot, but I just don't see it in the cards. But anything's possible, but that's kind of where I have things right now. All right, moving into the Atlantic, the Maple Leafs division. So yeah, I'll let Chard kick it off here.
Yeah, I am going to call it the Maple Leafs division because at number one, finishing first in the Atlantic, I have the Maple Leafs. Not really piping up my own team here. Regular season doesn't mean anything, as I know, have the last ever. They doesn't mean anything. But I really like what they did with their decor, which is what I think is going to get them to finish first in the Atlantic. I think their forward core can still get it done. The only minus we had was losing Tyler Bertuzzi. And I really like that Nick Robertson is showing out here. Not a huge fan of him, just because of ego problems. But I would love to see him thrive here. Maybe he does become one of my favorite players. And don't know how to feel about the Pacioretty thing yet, because I'm a huge advocate for Bobby McMahon. I really like how Bobby plays. He gets pucks behind the net, throws hits, scores. Like he does it all. Pacioretty's 36. He's old. He scored 4 goals in 60-something games last year. Not seeing too much upside with Pacioretty signing with us, but he probably will.
This is the guy that hates Nick Roberts, by the way.
Yeah. And then I like what they did. They have Steven Lorenz. They went out and got Steven Lorenz from the Florida Panthers, signed on a PTO right now. Stanley Cup pedigree. Was the 4th line center for the Florida Panthers as they won the Cup last season. Great penalty kill guy, big body, just like what he brings to the table. Then decors, where I really like what they did. They went out and got Chris Tanev from Dallas. They originally traded for his UFA rights, and then they signed him. Then they got Oliver Ekman-Larsson, also Stanley Cup pedigree. Just got him from the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Really like him. He wasn't too great in Vancouver, and then he went on to Florida on a prove-it deal. Really good. Like, he did unreal. He was top power play last year as Montour and Ekblad were out at the start of the year from their previous injuries to losing in the finals to Vegas. He was their number one guy there for a while, and he thrived. He did great. And then even when those guys came back, he was great. He was consistent. And then he was bumped down to the second power play unit. He did all right there. And then in the finals, when they lost 3 straight there to the Edmonton Oilers in that series, he was the top power play defenseman. He was quarterbacking that number 1 unit, and they scored quite a few goals in the finals. But yeah, and I also like what they did in net. Yet again, another Stanley Cup pedigree. Yes, he wasn't the starter. He got 2 games or whatever in there when Bobrovsky got lit up, or I don't know. But I just like Stolarz. He led the league last year in save percentage and goals against. He's not a top guy, mind you, backup goalie. Not going to fire him up to be Carey Price, but really like what they did there. Yeah, and then in the 2 spot, I have the Boston Bruins. I just think you can't, and they'll never be bad. Don't know how. Like last year, their roster, I didn't see too much in it. And then I watched Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle be fucking unreal. So, I'm looking at their roster here on Daily Faceoff and their lineup. Probably not accurate lines, but it's just like they'll turn these guys into players. Which is funny to say, but they always do that. They always find a nobody, as in like last year, Justin Brazeau, Morgan Geekie. Like they just turn those guys into gamers, man. And I think the Bruins always be gamers. They're always hard to beat. But this is the best part of their team is their decor. They have the biggest decor in the NHL right now. Their smallest guy is Charlie McAvoy. He's 6'2". They got the likes of Zadorov, which I like. Just don't really like how much money they signed him for. As a Leafs fan, I like how much money they signed him for. But as a hockey guy, 5.5 is too much for Zadorov. He might not even play on that line with McAvoy. It'll probably be Lindholm or even Lowry. But yeah, I like what they did. They got Lindholm as well. Same thing. Leafs fan, I love that they signed him for over $7 million. As a hockey fan, or looking at it from a Bruins fan's perspective, questionable. We've seen him score 40 before, but that was with that Gaudreau and Tkachuk line, the best line I've ever seen play. But yeah, I think they're second. They'll always be top three. They'll never be outside top three forever, in my opinion. And their goaltending. Good old Swayman. We already talked about Swayman. He's my fantasy goalie, so hope he does all right. Hope he sucks. Doesn't matter. It's a win-win. And then Korpisalo. I think that's a pretty good tandem. Korpisalo shouldn't play anything more than 20 games. But I think that's all right. And then at 3 spot, I got the defending Stanley Cup champs, the Florida Panthers. I did have them at 1 for a while in the Atlantic. But I decided to move them down because I think they are just beaten up. That's 2 finals in a row. One of them they won in Game 7. But I just think they're going to be beat up and just they're not a bad team by any means. If this team, was like a first-round exit last year, I think they're number 1 in the Atlantic. But they did lose some guys. They lost Brandon Montour. They did lose, like I said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Steven Lorenz, Stolars. I can't think of anybody else, but I think they're still a great team. But they're filling right now for Brandon Montour is Adam Boqvist, who couldn't get a contract anywhere else. He's a young defenseman. He was, I believe he was traded for Seth Jones way back when. But yeah, their decor is not as great as before, but obviously, they won the cup, so that's not the least of their concerns is to load up and go for it again. But I wouldn't be shocked if they do. Really like Bobrovsky. Tkachuk, absolute gamer. Hate playing against him. He'd probably be my favorite player if he's on my team. Same with Sam Bennett. Same way. There's just a bunch of rats over there in Florida. But that's why I have them at 3. But they can range anywhere in that top 3. And coming in at 4, and I have taking another wild card spot, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Same thing as last year. They're top heavy. They rely on their top guys to get them into the playoffs. Kucherov having an unbelievable season last year, having 100 assists. And I think they're going to do that again with getting Jake Gensel from the Carolina Hurricanes. I like that top line is going to dominate. It's going to dominate, and anyone that doesn't think that is not smart. But that line is going to dominate. Gensel, Point, Kucherov. That could probably be the best line in hockey next year. That's the problem. That will be their only line. Hagel and Cirelli, they can probably manage their line, but their winger right now that played with them in the preseason is Cam Atkinson, who is a healthy scratch for the Philadelphia Flyers. Yeah.
Attaboy.
Their team is a bunch of misfits right now who could make names for themselves, like all-stars. Zemgus Girgensons is on that 4th line. But, yeah, there's a bunch of makeup guys. Their decor, I like their decor, but Hedman is on a defensive decline. I still think he's as effective offensively. Newly acquired J.J. Moser after trading Mikhail Sergachev for Connor Geeky and J.J. Moser and a few other parts. I like J.J. Moser. I watched a lot of Arizona games last year when they announced that it was going to be their final season. So I watched a lot of Coyotes hockey. And I like him. He's great. But is he a top guy with Hedman? Probably not. Their second pair, they reacquired Ryan McDonough, which this, to me, made absolutely no sense. They wanted to sign Stamkos. They went out and traded for $6.5 million Ryan McDonagh again. Mind you, yes, he was a huge piece in their cup wins. Their second one, I believe. I'm not sure if he's there for the first one. He might have been. But Ryan McDonagh was a huge part. Former captain of the New York Rangers, like just a big piece. But getting him and letting Stamkos go is kind of, just a punch in the gut for Stamkos. Like their decor, McDonagh, Cernak, Darren Radish, and Nick Perbix. Pretty good decor. And then obviously they have Vasilevsky. Crazy to say, to me, this is a huge question mark in Tampa. Is Vasilevsky still the Vasilevsky we all know? Is he a Vezina caliber goaltender? Can he still be a Vezina caliber goaltender? But then their backup is Jonas Johannesson, and he's questionable. He probably won't be their backup for most of the year next year, if based off of last year, if he plays the same. But Tampa's got to rely on that top line. They're strong decor, and if Vasilevsky can be himself, and I think they can slot right in to that wild card spot, no problem. Then just behind them, again, just behind them is the Detroit Red Wings. I think they will miss again within probably within a 2 to 3 point radius again this year. They actually tied for the last wild card spot last year. With the Capitals both having 91 points. Just the Capitals had the tiebreaker with regulation and overtime wins. Think they're going to do the exact same. I really like their offensive core, or their top six. Sorry, I really like their top six. They went out and got Tarasenko from the Florida Panthers. That is another person that Florida lost. But I really like what they did there. And they're going to do the same as next year. It's their decor and their goaltending that is going to be a huge question mark. I don't like their decor. They have Ben Sherratt in the top 4. I don't think he's a top 4 defenseman. He's paired with Moritz Seider. That was last year, but I believe this year Simone Edvinsson is going to make the team, and he'll be Seider's D partner. And then they have Jeff Petrie as well, in the top 4. Jeff Petrie is. And Petrie and Sherratt haven't done anything since they played in that finals against Tampa, that playoff run. I have not liked them since then. They're really hard to watch, actually, if you're cheering as a Red Wings fan. Then they have Olli Maatta, and then they just signed Erik Gustafsson out of New York, as in the Rangers. Gustafsson did great in New York last year. He was great in the playoffs. He's a Leafs legend. He played, I think, under 10 games for Toronto. But he did score a meaningful goal against the Florida Panthers when we were in the second round, which was awesome. And then, yeah, their goaltending is a question. They went out and signed 38, 39-year-old Cam Talbot. Yes, he was an all-star last year, but after that, he was not too great. Obviously, watching him losing the starting reins to David Riddick in the playoffs last year against the Oilers. And then they have injury returnee Ville Husso. If he does end up making the team, he might not even make the team because they still have Alex Lyon as well, who also carried a brunt of the load last year to get them close to the playoffs. But yeah, Detroit's just going to have to rely on their offense, their top 6. But other than that, they don't got very much other than Seider on the back end. And then moving on to 6th in the division, I have the Ottawa Senators. I don't know really what to say. They went out and got Linus Ullmark. I think he'll be a big help for this team, but I still don't think they can take that step to move into a wild card spot. I like their offense. Their top 9s just got extremely better with Josh Norris being healthy heading into the season, and also the signing of David Perron. It'll also be great to see Shane Pinto back after he was suspended for half of the year last year. Didn't really get to find his mojo for obvious reasons. He missed half of the season. And then last year, seeing the emergence of Ridley Gregg. who is the Timu version of Brad Marchand. But they didn't really do much with their decor other than losing Jacob Chitrin and bringing in Nick Jensen. So you can fend for yourself on that. And then they obviously have Linus Ullmark and Anton Forsberg, but yet again, I just don't think they can take that extra step into the wild card. Then finishing 7th, I have the Buffalo Sabres. Same boat. Can't take that extra step. Their offense is all right. They can, if Tage Thompson goes back to 90-point Tage Thompson, maybe they make a run for that wild card spot. But I'm also not going to base their season off of the first 2 games I watched on the weekend. They were not watchable. The Sabres played bad hockey. But I also do like their decor. Their decor has a lot of upside with 2 first overall picks, obviously, with Datley and Power, and then another top 10 pick in Byram. But I believe they're a right shot defenseman away, but also I think they're a coach away. And Lindy Ruff is not the answer as their head coach in Buffalo. Another question mark would be their goaltending with Levi and Luukkonen. They just put James Reimer on waivers today. So, which I don't really understand why they wouldn't just keep him up, but I don't know. And then finishing last, I have the Montreal Canadiens. Don't know how people had any upside looking at this roster. Don't understand it at all. People had hoped that they might be a wild card team. I'm like, well, you're going to need a lot of miracles here. I like their top line, Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky. Is it a legit top line? I don't think so, but I think I'd say it's a C tier first line. And then they have the most injury prone second line before Laine got injured. They had Newhook, Doc, and Laine. Injury prone guys. And we already saw that with Laine being out in a preseason game on a knee-on-knee hit with Leafs. Now Marlies forward, Cedric Paré. But they just have a lot of guys that are making too much money, pretty much holding them to the cap floor. And Brendan Gallagher making 6.5. He's going to be playing 4th line. Then they have Josh Anderson making 5.5. I think Josh Anderson sucks unless he plays against the Leafs. He always scores against Toronto. And then their decor, super young. They have 2 veteran guys in Matheson and Savard. The rest of the guys are under 23. In Arbor Jacki, Justin Barron, and then the kid. They have a lot of Habs fans are really high on him as the next Cale Makar, Lane Hudson. He's too small, in my opinion. He will be a great power play guy. He's unreal edges. I just think he's a little small to be the next Makar. And then the net, they have potentially Team Canada starter in the World Nations Faceoff, Samuel Montembeault. Canada does not have a lot of options, if I am saying that sentence. So then they have Caden Premu, 2 young guys. They lost Jake Allen last year. I think they're bottom of the Atlantic. I know I kind of went on, but this is the division I know a lot about. So I rambled on.
Goodness. Few different things for me. I'm not going to go too much into it. Toronto, Boston, Florida, top 3. I have Boston over Florida right now, mainly because of what Chard said with their Stanley Cups and Stanley Cup runs, I should say, and kind of just probably being dog tired and injured and beat up and everything else that comes with it. I really don't know if they make a 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. It'd definitely be something. But we've kind of seen it with Tampa Bay. You kind of hit a clip or eclipse and just kind of start to steadily go down the mountain, I guess. And Tampa for me is fourth. They've been a first round exit a couple times recently. Haven't really had the same pedigree as they usually do. They used to be a huge threat in the playoffs with Vasilevsky and Stamkos and Hedman and these bigger guys. And I don't know if teams have just figured them out or what happened, but they're just not that big of a threat anymore. Like even the Leafs ended up figuring them out one year. Yeah, and then I have Detroit, Ottawa, and Buffalo, and then obviously Montreal rounding out the end there. But I really want Buffalo to do something, but it's just like they just can't figure it out. I mean, same goes for Ottawa. Linus Ullmark might be the fix and he might help, but I really don't know because he can't play 82 games. Like, there has to be a breaking point at some point. And I don't know with that decor if he can hold them off for probably half the season. So we'll see how that goes. Detroit's an interesting team. I like Detroit, but it's just like, like I don't know if they're there yet, and they should be. I think they should be a contending team at least, and it's just they're not there. My apologies. I have Buffalo over Ottawa. Um, like Chart said, if you get Tage Thompson going and you get the boys going, they have some good depth. Their goaltending is not horrendous. I mean, it's not amazing either, but I think they could make a push at least this year coming up. But again, it all depends on what happens during the season, and a lot of things need to go right. For Montreal, I think it was mainly just having that line A piece and having a little bit more depth. Fans believed they could be a wild card team, and they thought maybe they were starting to push in the right direction. But without line A and just everything else, I don't see it. I think they're still a bottom team, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, that's a good pick there for you again, especially with Demidov now and all these other good picks. But especially if like guys like the Kirby Docs and those guys fall again, like they're injury prone. Like it's bound to happen. So uh, we'll see. But yeah, I definitely have Montreal rounding out the bottom there. All right, to the Central. Chard, take it away.
All right, I'll try to be a little bit quicker here in the Central. So rounding in at the number one spot, I have the Dallas Stars. I believe that would be the back-to-back years if they won it this year. But I like their team for obvious reasons. They have a lot of young pieces, and they also have a lot of veteran pieces that are still elite. Like the likes of Matt Duchene signing a very team-friendly deal at $3 million to play for the Stars. He had a great playoff last year. He did eliminate the Colorado Avalanche, the team that had drafted him, which I think was awesome. But yeah, they did lose some pieces on D, like Chris Tanev and Yanni Hakanpää to Toronto. But I like how they did. They went out and got Ilya Lyubushkin. As a Leafs fan, I like him. He doesn't really do much wrong. He's just a consistent guy. He's not too great at anything, but he's not bad at anything. Really reliable piece. And then they got Matt Dumba from Tampa Bay. I did some reading online, and I watched some playoff hockey last year. Some Tampa fans were not happy with how Dumba performed in the playoffs last year. But I still think he's a great piece, and I don't see that knocking Dallas off from number one. And then obviously they have Ottinger and net. They got the Smith from Vancouver, right? He was not in Pittsburgh last year. He was in Vancouver last year. And I like that. I just don't think that knocks him off from number one. And then at the number two spot, I have the Nashville Predators. I'm betting high on the Preds this year. Like what they did. They went out, got Steven Stamkos from Tampa, and they got Jonathan Marchessault from the Golden Knights. Love that. They lacked shooting in the playoffs. They lacked scoring in the playoffs. So why not go out and get a former 60 goal scorer and a 40 goal scorer? I liked what they did. I like their roster. I believe they are a second line center away. They have 3 first round picks this year. So I think they can get it done and bring in a few pieces to help out that forward core. And then on defense, they went in and brought in Brady Shea. Also, which is kind of funny to me, they said they lacked shooting in the playoffs. So they also brought in a defenseman that scored 20 goals 2 years ago, which I think is a huge part. And then obviously they just extended UC Saros for 8 years. He's a great goalie, top 5 goalie in my opinion. And then they brought in Scott Wedgwood from Dallas, reliable backup. Showed last year when Ottinger was out for a couple of weeks. And that's why I have them at the number 2. I betting high on them. They did great last year. They won, 16, 18 games in a row? Which was pretty cool to watch, all because of a U2 concert Barry Trotz had canceled. And now they call it the FU2 concert, which I think is hilarious. It's awesome. Then at 3, I have the Colorado Avalanche. Just another offensive juggernaut, top-heavy team. With the likes of, obviously, Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. Those 3 players are probably enough to get you in the playoffs. I think McKinnon will close to repeat what he did last year. There's no reason why he shouldn't. And then Mikko Rantanen will give you 40 goals. I like Jonathan Drouin, but obviously he's nowhere near the level of those other guys. But he had a bounce back year last year playing with his former Halifax Moosehead teammate Nathan McKinnon. And I really like that first line, Drouin, McKinnon, Rantanen. But then it's after that where it gets shaky. They have a few good role pieces here, like their third line. I like their third line in Wood, Colton, and O'Connor. But then it's their second line with kind of ran by Casey Middlestat, which he couldn't figure out in Buffalo. Didn't watch it really too much Avalanche hockey to see if he figured it out or not in Colorado. But then they have holes on the wings with a question mark in Nikolai Kovalenko, who came over from the KHL last year. And then their fourth line is free-for-all. Right now, they don't have anyone filled out for that fourth line. Then their D-core's pretty good. I like their top 4 in Taves, Makar, Girard, and Manson. Their bottom pair is also a free-for-all at the moment, with Shillington being there. They just cut Eric Brandstrom, I believe, or they traded him, actually. And then in net, they have a question mark considering his playoffs last year, but I think he did all right after the Winnipeg series. Alexander Georgiev. Interesting pick. He had an all right year last year. I did have him in fantasy, so I did follow him quite a bit last year. Sometimes he was on, sometimes he was off, not knowing if that was him or the team. But that's the question mark in net, with it being Georgiev and Justice Anunen, which I think Anunen will be a good goalie in a couple of years. Then in 4, I have a fellow Canadian team in the Winnipeg Jets. They lost quite a bit, but I think Hellebuck is enough with this roster to get them to a wild card spot. I like that. I think they fleeced LA in that Dubois trade. Obviously, Dubois is not there. So they got Velarde, Kupari, and Alex Iafallo from the LA Kings. And picks for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is not a King anymore. But if they didn't, I really like this team. I think they're just missing a second line center, but Perfetti could step in and take that second line center spot, as he lost a lot of responsibility last year with Tyler Toffoli and other guys coming in. And their decor, it's pretty much same as last year. They have Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk. They just lost Brendan Dillon, which I think was a big loss. But Other than that, they have Colin Miller getting a spot in the lineup with Dylan being out, and I like him as a 5th or 6th guy. Then they have Hayden Fleury, who played with the Tampa Bay Lightning last year, I believe, and he did all right. He held his own. And then they got Capo Kakinen and Eric Comrie. Don't know who it's going to be. He's going to back up Hellebuck, and Hellebuck is never going to be a question in my opinion. He's going to be among the league leaders for goaltenders, if not the league leader in goaltenders, and that will get them to that wild card spot. Then after that, I have the Utah Hockey Club. Almost called them Arizona, but I have a undershot here. I have them being an underdog. I actually have them sneaking in as the second wildcard team in the playoffs this year. This is my big hot take. I really like a Clayton Keller. Spoke about him earlier. Don't need to elaborate more. But then Dylan Guenther. Think he's a great player. $7 million, questionable already because he hasn't played a full NHL season yet. But I like that. And I like their offensive core. Like their depth is great. They got Kevin Stenlund, who some may not know, but he played for that Florida team last year as well. Key penalty killer, took a lot of D-zone draws, and I think that's kind of what they were missing in Utah because Barrett Hayden hasn't developed into that fully two-way guy yet. But I like what they did there. They got good penalty killer in Stenlund. They have Kerfoot, who's strictly a penalty killer. He is a former Leaf. I know that's all he can do is penalty kill. But then I like what they did on defense. They traded J.J. Moser and Connor Geeky and brought in Mikhail Sergachev as their number one guy. Really think he'll thrive in Utah. He always played in Hedman's shadow, which I think he's a number one caliber defenseman. Just playing under Hedman, you just can never know that. But getting all these minutes here, I like what they did also. They brought in John Marino from New Jersey. He's a top 4 defenseman. He's great. Like their decor. Ian Cole as well, brought in from Vancouver. I like what they did there, signing him in free agency. But then goaltending, it's the same as last year. I think this is their question mark. This is their number one question mark, is if Ingram can repeat what he did last season. Yes, the Coyotes didn't finish high in the standings, but Ingram played great. He had close to elite numbers in net. And then obviously Karel Vejmelka, or Vejmelka, however you pronounce it, will be backing him up. And then in the 6th spot, I have the St. Louis Blues. Like what they did. Getting offer sheeting Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg and stealing them from Edmonton just for a couple of draft picks. Their team has the potential of being a playoff team. Really just, to me, relies on their D-core. I like their offense. They brought in Matthew Joseph and Radek Faksa to fill out their roles, and they also got Texier from Columbus. So I kind of like what they did there. Jake Neighbors is a proven guy. He showed it last year that he can play top 6 minutes and thrive. Their decor for me is a question mark only because they have a young guy, as in Broberg, who hasn't played full season there yet, and he's getting paid just under 4, or he's getting paid just under 5. I can't quite remember. But they're still rolling with Nick Leddy and Justin Falk. They just signed Ryan Suter, which is kind of wild to me that teams are still signing him as he's been bought out the last 2 places he's been in the last 3 years. But then net, I think, actually, no, still speaking on their decor, I think they have a big loss in Torrey Krug being out for the rest of the season next year. But they got guys that can fill in that spot with Falk taking over the top power play unit. But they're just going to have to find a guy there to fill in as a offensive guy on the power play. And I like their goaltending. Bennington and Hofer. Joel Hofer played great last year. Bennington's probably the biggest question mark. He can either be elite. We've seen it before. He won a Stanley Cup, but yes, that was 5 years ago. So he has glimpses. I'd love to see him fight Marc-Andre Fleury on Fleury's end tour this year. That'd be awesome. And coming in at the 7th spot, this is the team that I'm probably going to catch some flame for having them super low, is the Minnesota Wild. I don't know what Wild hockey I watched last year, but it was not enjoyable. The year before where they made the playoffs, they were in a high pace, high energy, very high energy team. It's not even that Kaprizov didn't perform last year. He did great. It's just everyone else. It was just Boldy and Kaprizov and Ek, those three guys. Their depth pieces didn't really show enough upside for me last year that they're going to take the jump and be a consistent playoff team. And moving to their D-core is questionable with their captain, Jared Spurgeon, getting back from a season-long injury last year, only playing 5 games last year. But then they also got to see Brock Faber take over as the number 1 guy last year, which I think was great for him and his development. He got a big extension. I like that. But Faber's got to prove it. He's got to do 2 years in a row of him, or he's got to repeat what he did last year. Then their bottom pair is up for grabs right now. Right now on Daily Faceoff, it shows it is Declan Chisholm. I have never heard that name. And Zach Bogosian. And then in net is, obviously, I just mentioned Flower. It'll be Marc-Andre Fleury as the backup. And then Philip Gustafsson as the starter, which last year he did not do good at all. He was the main reason they couldn't put together some points to make the playoffs. But we might see Wallstedt next year. I think we'll see Wallstedt at some point. I don't think Gustafsson will be a Minnesota Wild much longer. Then in last, the Chicago Blackhawks. I say they take the jump, but it's funny I'm saying that because last year they're dead last in the Central. I also think this year they're going to be dead last in the Central, but I think they take a jump to where they're a lot better than what they were last year. But, yeah, I like what they did. They brought in Bertuzzi, Mikheyev from Vancouver. They got Teravainen from Carolina. You know, they're just filling out with veteran pieces with their young forwards, and I think that's really important for a young team, is to bring in some veteran forwards. Same with their D-core, honestly. They brought in TJ Brody from Toronto, and they brought in Alec Martinez from Vegas, which is kind of confusing to me because those guys will make the team over Kevin Korchinski, who got cut 2 days ago, which is kind of crazy to me. Korchinski played a full year last year. He played 76 games. But, yeah, I don't think this team's good enough to jump out of 8 with Mrazek, Soderblom, and Laurent Brossoit being their goaltending trio. They're just missing some more top guys. Like, Bedard's all they got, really. Seth Jones at 9.5 is not a top guy. That's a bad contract. That rounds up my Central predictions.
I'm falling asleep over here, boys. Holy. All right, Central talk. Basically identical, other than the Utah surprise there. I have Dallas at first, followed by Nashville. I really like Nashville going into the year. I think they could be a dark horse. They're another team that kind of has to figure out the playoffs, though. The playoffs are just a whole different breed, and some teams can hang and others can't. But Dallas, yeah, I like their depth. Rope Hint is always a great two-way guy. Wyatt Johnson could be a great piece. Their D-core, in the left side is great. The right is questionable. Matt Dumba, I can't even pronounce these guys' names. Like, I'm not even going to try to. Power play units are great. Yeah, like I mean, and I love Ottinger. I think next week's episode we'll get into trophy winners and stuff, so I'm not going to spoil it too much. But I don't think Ottinger takes home the Vezina or anything, but I think he will be a good goalie for them. And then I have Colorado to Winnipeg. Again, Colorado, always a good team, but they've kind of been up and down recently, last couple of years. Like Chart said, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, it's pretty much all you need out of them. Ivan, I forgot about that kid. What a great name in Colorado.
Avon. Even his middle name
Oh
is
yeah.
Avon as well, which is awesome to think.
What a
He's Czech Republic, right? Or Czechia, sorry.
yeah. 22 years or 21 years old, undrafted. Goodness. He's Czech. What a name. I don't know if is he gonna make the opening night roster or what?
I think it's just up for grabs in Colorado. There's a lot of guys like Cal Ritchie, too. Obviously,
I love
scored
Cal Ritchie.
that nasty goal the other day on Vejmelka. But it's up for grabs. I honestly have no idea who's going to crack that fourth line in Colorado. Like it could be anybody.
Then I go to Winnipeg after Colorado. I've bounced between these two, but Winnipeg, they're so questionable. Hellebuck might just carry his weight again and carry a heavy amount of weight and just bring them to the promised land of a playoff run. But their decor, it's hit and miss for me. Their forward group, I like Perfetti. Not a lot of guys like Niederreiter anymore, but I've always been a fan of him. Ehlers, those kinds of guys, they can help you win games, but it's still questionable for me. I'm not as against Minnesota as Chart is here this year, but I have Minnesota in that, what spot is it? Fifth spot heading into this year. That could be a terrible prediction. Gustafsson could be the most rocky goaltender ever, and we see Wallstat, which I would also love. I love Wall. They're like Brock Faber, those kind of guys. Like they're just they should have more depth and be better than they are, I think. I love Ryan Hartman, Foligno, it's just a lot of hit and misses there, and I don't know if it'll withstand a whole season. To round out the bottom, I have St. Louis, Utah, and then Chicago. I would love for Utah to be a good team this year and kind of just surprise people out of the gate. But right now, I have them finishing up in that area there, just in front of Chicago. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I don't go into as much depth as Chard does. But, Chicago, I never want them to be good. Again, that is the most biased I could be to that team. But I love Bedsy. I don't mind Bertuzzi. That first line's pretty good, but other than that, it kind of, I wouldn't say even out, but it kind of plummets a little bit after that Bedsy line. So, a guy on Daily Faceoff here doesn't even have a jersey, so it's pretty questionable, and that goaltending tandem. Not saying it's worse than Philly, but it's not pretty. So, all right, we'll wrap this up here quick. Pacific, we've got to run through that. Chard, I'll let you manhandle the Pacific there.
All right. I'm going to nail this one off quick. First spot, got the Edmonton Oilers. Obvious reasons. Devastated they just lost in the final. I think we're going to see a beast mode Connor McDavid this year. Without a doubt. Watching that, just that little clip, it shows the heart the guy's got. and the clip of him crying in the locker room after the loss. Can't imagine how he feels. I think he's going to destroy this year. I like what they did. Got in Skinner and Arvidsson. Decor, questionable, but they did lose Cody Ceci, which in my opinion is a plus. They got Ty Emberson, who is a great shutdown guy already at his young age. I think, just like without a doubt, they're going to have a great year. Draisaitl signed big. Bouchard's on a contract year, which could end up terrible. And then they have Stu Skinner and Calvin Pickard as the tandem, same as last year. I think Stu's all right. He'll maintain them. He'll hold them. They'll win the division. Then at 2, I have the Vancouver Canucks. Like what they did with the situation that they got dealt with Lindholm and Zadorov asking for so much. I like what they did. They brought in Danton Heinen and Jake DeBrusk from Boston. They also got Sprong from Detroit. They also have some young guys in the preseason that have been showing out in Atu Ratu, which they got him back in the Bo Horvat trade. They also have Arjdeep Bains, who I've never heard of him until the preseason. He scored a bunch in the preseason. And then even with losing guys like Zadorov and Cole, they brought in Forbert and Vinny Desharnais, big guys. They have a big D-core as well. Then in net is the question mark for me, which I think gets them losing the first spot in this division, with Demko being a huge question mark. I want to elaborate on this. This is the one team I want to elaborate on because even get Dylan involved. Just the Thatcher Demko situation with him. Is he a big mystery? I haven't read too far into it, but he thinks it was started last year to where if they win the first round, he'll be back for the second round. And then they won the first round, and he wasn't back for the second round. Then it moved to the finals. If they go to the finals, he'll be back. And now he's not going to be back for the start of the season this year. What do you think of Artur Silovs being the number 1 guy in Vancouver?
That doesn't sound good at all, especially going from Demko to that. Where's Vancouver here? There. Yeah, that's definitely. Like even what's his name? Selvovs,
Artur Silovs. Yeah,
he's even battling stuff. Like, he's not 100%.
I like what they did. Yeah, I like what they did getting Lankinen. But I don't know. You're a goalie guy. Do you know anything on the Demko? Did you read anything on? Did you hear anything on the 32 Thoughts? Any of the recent ones? Because all I'm hearing in the Demko situation, he's got this muscle. He's got this very rare condition in his muscle that they've never done anything with hockey players. It's only a select few of soccer players they've ever done the procedure or medicine or whatever it is with. But they don't know the severity, which is not good to hear because he started game 1 last year. He did great in game 1 for the Canucks. And then after that, they said he was he'll be back next round.
Yeah.
He's not back for the start of this year, months later, which is alarming to me. But I do think they have I would say a C-tier tandem in Silovs and Kevin Lankinen. I think Lankinen was a great backup to Saros last year. And then Silovs in the playoffs last year just was unreal for a guy that's never played an NHL game before.
Yeah, he was good.
I'm
looking.
You're reading?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the notes on. Because he's still very questionable and very uncertain.
But yeah, I guess while killing time on him searching for the Demko updates, I'm going to move over to Niels Hoglander signing his extension. I think it was right at the start of this podcast. Niels Hoglander signs a 3-year by $3 million extension. So that kicks in at the start of next season. Great deal. I like Niels Höglander. He played on the wing of Pettersson last year. Pettersson had a great regular season, but he was hurt in the postseason, which made him not great. I don't think they should have played him because of the severity of his injury. He couldn't do anything. He was very weak core, but yeah, I like that Niels Höglander signing, and I think Pettersson's still a great player. Anything on Demko?
Yeah. I think this is Elliot Freeman. No, this is Michael Amato from 11 hours ago. Demko, his health could be either earlier this year or maybe he's out even longer. It's still no clarity at this point. Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't look great. There also has to be some concern that Demko never really fully comes back or gives it a try, and the injury just doesn't allow him to play at an elite level again. So clearly a serious injury that kind of just defeats the Canucks and him for his career. That's devastating if he can't come back to full health. Yeah, and going back to last year in the playoffs, it hasn't really been clear since.
Yeah, that's a not good news in Canuck land for sure. So now in the 3 spot, and then the last playoff spot in the Pacific is going to be the Vegas Golden Knights. The roster, yeah, they lost a bunch of guys. They lost a bunch of wingers in Marchessault and Riley Smith. Oh no, Riley Smith did not play there last year. But they lost a big guy there. But I think Daily Faceoff has Hurdle playing center. I think he's going to move to the wing because they have to have another winger there. But Eichel, William Karlsson, Hurdle, and then their decor is so stacked. Like their decor is top in the league. With Theodore, Pietrangelo, Hannafin, Haig, McNabb, and Whitecloud. Just like a really good decor. And then their goaltending is Aiden Hill and Ilya Samsonov. My favorite goaltender, Ilya Samsonov. Yeah, Samsonov's question mark. I think Hill is a good 1B. I don't think he's elite by any means, but I think the Pacific is definitely the weakest division. That's why I have Vegas slotting in at 3, even though they lack forward depth. That's why I have them slotting in at the 3. Then in the 4th spot, I have the Los Angeles Kings, but I do have them missing the playoffs this year. Some of their moves are very questionable, but I actually do like the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade for Darcy Kuemper. It is less money for less term. So they got Kuemper at 5.4, I believe, for the next 3 years, instead of Dubois at 7.5 or 8.5 for the next 8 years. So I really like what they did in that trade, but Kuemper is not starting goaltender. He hasn't done anything since he won the Cup in Colorado. They brought in some guys like Fogle, Jeannot, Joel Edmondson from Toronto. That's it, and I don't think they're game changers, like, by any means. Kopitar's getting older, but he keeps proving to me every year that he's still an elite number 1 center. Byfield's going to take the step, but I just don't see them finishing over any other teams that are making the playoffs. And then I'm going to move to Seattle, finishing in the 5 spot. They had some great additions in Chandler Stevenson and Brandon Montour. Do think they signed Stevenson for a little bit too much money, but they need him as a mentor to Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. I think Beniers bounces back. I just don't think they're a playoff team. Like that year they made the playoffs and beat the Avalanche in the first round was a miracle. Like their decor is just they don't really have a number 1 guy. They have maybe 2 second guys in Dunn and Montour, but I don't really think they have a playoff caliber team with Joey Decord and Philip Grubauer in net. Decord could be great, but we don't know. That's the issue. He had a great stretch last year when they were already out of contention. So then moving into the 6th spot, I have the Calgary Flames, my hometown team, my second favorite team. They have a lot of prove-it guys. In Huberdeau, they have Kuzmenko on a contract year right now. They have Zary on a contract year. They extended Pospisil. Just a bunch of middle 6 guys. They have one guy they have 2 top 6 guys in Kuzmenko and Kadri. I guess 3, Sharangovich. But that's kind of it. The rest are a bunch of third liners. And then they have a $10.5 million third liner in Jonathan Huberdeau. And then on defense, 2 really good defensemen in Uyghur and Anderson, but then after that, the fall off is unbelievable. It drops to Kevin Ball, Daniil Miromanov, Jake Bean, and Tyson Barrie. The drop off, that's where the issue is. Their D-core is not great, and then obviously their goaltending, I think, is bottom 3 in the league with Dustin Wolf and Daniel Vladar. Wolf hasn't proven himself. That's a big problem. He can't seem to figure it out in the NHL in the short amount of time he's been there, but obviously it's only been a short amount of time, so it's not that bad. And then at the 7th spot, the Anaheim Ducks. The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. The new logo. It's pretty sick. I love the jerseys. They really only got Cutter Gauthier. It's Dylan's favorite player. The bright spot is they're 2 young guys, or they're young guys, sorry, all of their young guys. Gauthier, Carlson, Tavish, Zegras I don't think Zegras is good at hockey. He's a skilled guy with an ego, in my opinion. I'll die on that hill. And then their D-core is not very great. Cam Fowler's still the number 1 guy in Anaheim. He's not a number 1 guy anymore. But they do have some bright spots. They have Pavel Mintyukov, Jackson Lacombe, and Olin Zellweger. And then the newly crowned captain of Radko Gudas. Still not that great of a team. And then in net, they have Dostal and Gibson. Gibson won't be a Duck in a while. Just not great goaltending. Then moving into last in the Pacific, I have the San Jose Sharks finishing there again. Yes, I think that they're in the same boat as Chicago. Not as good as Chicago, but they're in the same boat as in they took a step from last year. They have guys like Celebrini obviously making the team, Will Smith making the team, and they brought in some other guys to help fit some veteran presence. They got Tyler Toffoli from the Winnipeg Jets, not from them, but signed him in free agency. Then they got Alex Wenberg. He played for the Rangers last year. They signed him in free agency, and then they claimed Barclay Goodrow off of waivers from the Rangers. Then on D, they went out and they got Cody Ceci from the Oilers, and they got Jake Wallman from the Red Wings. Just some veteran guys helping out the young guys. And then in net, they have 2 Devils legends in Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood, which it is crazy to me that they have Askarov sent down the other day after promising a NHL path.
I would like to make it clear he's injured.
Okay,
that he makes hasn't a lot of played sense. The whole preseason, and they had no other choice than to send him down.
That makes a lot of sense then. So I take that back. It makes a lot of sense. So he will start the year in the AHL, and that closes off my season standings with the San Jose Sharks finishing last in the Pacific Division.
All right. I'd just like to say apologies for the hour and 30-minute long episode. I didn't think we'd go on for this long.
We can only get better.
Yeah, the first episode, so bear with us. We'll get this down pat. With that being said, my specific Pacific standings. There you go. That's a mouthful. Actually, yeah, identical to charts. Edmonton, Vancouver at the top. Demko could be a big concern there. And then Vegas takes that second slot. But I really pray that Demko is that guy and he comes back to being what he can be. you can't go wrong with Edmonton. I think this is the year you make or break this year. McDavid, I personally think he's just going to have an outrageous year. Um, he's gunning for another deep playoff run. He wants to win badly. Like, he's so good, and he already is a difference maker. Like, there's not a down year for him, and his down years are still 100-point seasons. Like, there's no stopping him. Then we go to Vegas, LA, Seattle. If LA makes it, they're playing the Oilers. So, like, and it never goes well for them. So, you know, um, I don't think LA makes it this year, but if they do, it's not going to last long. Like, they're another team that can't get past the first round hiccups. So, then Seattle and Anaheim. Seattle's such a weird team. They had such a decent couple first years and then kind of went off the rails. Dave Haxtell will do that to you, though. Anaheim, hate that team, man. Like, didn't really like them before, but now they got Gauthier, and like, oh man, kid still pisses me off. But we're not going to get into that too much. Like Chard said, I think Zegras is a cool player to watch. He's got cool dangles and stuff, but man, he has nothing else. Like, he's just a one thing guy. He doesn't back check. He's not physical. He just does the fancy thing, and it doesn't work out a lot of the time. So, and then to wrap it up, I got Calgary and San Jose. We don't have Liam O'Connor on today, but he would be throwing fists in the air and yelling at us about having Calgary that low. He's the most optimistic Flames fan I think I've ever met in my life. For reference, because he's not here, he has the Flames making the playoffs this year, or at least pushing for it, I think was the word he said. So, yeah, we'll get him on next week, and he'll light up a storm there. But I just don't see it. They had their run there against Dallas, and you thought they would do something. They had the whole city behind them, and then things just hit a wall. And with Huberdeau and Kadri and those boys not racking up the points, you don't really have a lot of offense. And their goalie tandem is not great. It's extremely young. It's not amazing. There's a lot of teams this year that don't have great tandems, and it really brings down their sort of mojo and what they could be this year for the Flames, like the Flyers. Who else did we mention? Utah, even. Like, that's a huge question mark for their potential. So I would have loved for the Sharks to get Askarov in there. I love him. I think he's going to be a huge piece in the coming years. But we'll have to wait and see on him. I don't know what his status is. I just know he's been injured basically the whole preseason. I don't even think he got a game in. So no other choice to send him down there. But yeah, that wraps that up. That's our standings. I wanted to get into playoff picture, but we'll add that in next week with more of the boys and kind of get that picture sorted out. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Any last words there, Charge?
No. Just excited to get this dump and chase going. Excited to do the podcast. Obviously, we got some work to do. But it's what we start out for, right? It's to figure out what's going on. And I'm excited for the 2024-25 season to get going here on Tuesday. I will definitely be watching.
All right. With that being said, I'll get more dialed in on all the teams, just so I can spit back and forth a little bit here. Didn't add too much. Chart's more the main focal guy with everything NHL. I just usually cover the Flyers, but I'll get that dialed in. With that being said, thank you all for joining us on this episode. I apologize if you watched this whole thing. 100 or an hour and 40 minutes long, but we love you if you did. Comment down below your thoughts. Let us know what we could do better if you have anything. Yeah, we'll see you next episode. Please like and subscribe. Mean a lot to
Follow
us.
the socials.
And they just got ear raped. All right. Follow us on social media. I'll throw our link tree and all of our
Seat
social
Geek.
medias down
Seat
below.
Geek.
And Seat Geek as well. Please, if you're ever buying tickets, holy, hit up that Dump and Chase pod. All right. We'll see you guys next episode. Next Sunday. All right. Peace.